Hey everyone, how are you doing? How has your reading month been going so far? A lot of great things are being published in February and I'm trying to keep up, but there's just like too many really interesting sounding things being published. And so I want to do a book haul today to talk about some of these books and maybe get your opinion, as always, of what I should prioritize and try to read first, and what you're most interested in reading. I'd really like to know in the comments below. But first, there is a bit of housekeeping because the last book haul I did, I said I wanted to give a giveaway to one of the viewers for this lovely little bundle of Faber books, short stories celebrating the 90th anniversary of the publisher. It's like nicely wrapped, and a lot of their most famous writers are included in this bundle. And and 95 people responded and left comments saying they want to enter the giveaway. So I don't know the most fair way to go about doing this, so I thought I would use the Google random number generator and just enter number 95 and then see what number comes up. So, okay, drum roll, gonna generate a number, and number 8. So I'll go down the list and 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. It's Annie. Annie, who has her own booktube channel called Am I Right? And going to send that bundle of books to you, Annie. I'll get in touch with you and send that on to you. So hope you enjoy them and let me know what you think about them. I'm going to be so excited to hear what you think of them. So but thanks everyone for entering and commenting, and I love hearing about what books you're most interested in, why you're most interested in them. So now I'm going to start talking about the books that are being published in the UK this month in February that publishers have kindly sent me, and I'm trying to figure out what I should read first. And first is this big tome of a book, which I think I'm going to have to read in stages because it's quite long, but it's one I'm really excited about. It's by Maria Popova, and if you've ever seen the website called Brain Pickings, I love that website. If, like, in an ideal world, that's what I would want my book blog to be. It's this wonderful sort of conversation and musings about all these great writers and artists and thinkers from the past, and how we can incorporate their ideas into the modern world, what their historical significance was, and it's sort of this just sort of living intellectual project that she's done. I admire her so much, and she's published this book called Figurine, which is sort of basically taking all of those ideas from her website and looking at them, and so examining the lives of several different artists and writers and philosophers and scientists and all different kinds of thinkers, focusing a lot on different female figures from the past and queer figures, so I think it's going to be a really fascinating book, but one that I'm going to have to take my time with and go through at a steady pace. Out of Egypt by Andre Aciman. This is a memoir of his, and this is the author made famous by Call Me By Your Name, which became a major successful movie. And this was written in 1994, I think, but it's been reprinted. And it's the story of the life of his family. They're a Jewish family who lived in Egypt for 3 generations before they were sort of forcibly ousted from the country. And so this is his story and the story of his family's life. Sounds really like to know more about his past and his life. Voices in the Evening by Natalia Ginzburg. This is a writer who's having a bit of a revival at the moment. She's being published in these beautiful new editions that sort of shine. And she was a writer, Italian writer from the mid-20th century, and this novel takes place just after World War II, about a girl in a small Italian town who has, I think, quite a strict religious mother, and it's about her relationship with another man, illicit relationship, and the story of their family and the development of that relationship. And I love the inside. There's this beautiful green color on the inside of it's sort of it looks much more bright green in the video, but it's more aqua green in real life. So there's that too. And also this edition comes with an introduction by Colm Toibin, whose writer I just love so much. Muscle by Alan Trotter. This is his debut novel, and this is a story about two sort of tough guys who get involved in a gangster sort of racket, but I don't think it's a traditional sort of gangster story. I think they get involved with a screenwriter, and it becomes a bit of a sort of postmodern type story, and I expect it'll be quite like experimental in structure, because there's blurbs on the back from Daisy Johnson and Kevin Barry, who are two like great modern writers, but quite like their writing is quite like edgy and experimental. So yeah, I'm really curious about this. Children of the Cave by Virve Sammalkorpi, and this sounds like a wild novel. It has a really beautiful cover. It's about two French explorers in the early 1800s who travel to a remote place in Russia, where they discover in a cave there these sort of prehistoric children who are sort of half human and half animal, and so it's about their experiences with those children and trying to discover where they descended from and where they came from, and it's about what happens to them next. And yeah, so that just sounds like such a fascinating premise. All the Lives We Ever Lived by Katharine Smyth. And this is a memoir, a nonfiction book, which I am grateful to Britta Bowler for talking about this on her channel, because I first heard about it on her channel. I was like, this sounds like the perfect book for me. I have to read it, because, you know, last year I went through a bit of a rediscovery of Virginia Woolf's book. I mean, I've always loved Virginia Woolf's writing, but yeah, I reread a couple of her books and just fell in love with her writing again. And this is a memoir about a woman who reads to Lighthouse during her undergraduate degree, and then she goes through the process where she loses her father, and then she reads to the Lighthouse again and reconnects with it in a very different way. And so it's a mixture of memoir and literary criticism and just sort of tribute to Virginia Woolf, and so yeah, sounds like such a great book, and is really beautiful edition. So I'm so excited to read this. The Familiars by Stacey Halls. This is her debut novel, and I have to admit I am a sucker for foxes on the cover of books, and I know this is such like a stereotype that foxes and owls and things are very in vogue now, but who wouldn't fall in love with and the in papers like this has really beautiful little fox, and so yeah, I know that's really shallow and silly, but I can't help it. I just am instantly attracted to books with the fox on the cover. And so this is a historical novel, and it's set in the 1600s in Lancashire, England, and it's about a woman in a sort of noble family who has been trying to have a child, has had a few different miscarriages, and she reads this letter, which is a prediction that on her fourth, she's pregnant with her fourth child, and she reads a letter that has a prediction that she will die trying to give birth to this fourth child, and so she enlists the help of a local midwife to try to help her through the process and prevent her from dying, but it sort of gets mixed up with sorcery and witchcraft, and yeah, so it sounds like a really intriguing premise for like historical novels. So yeah, I'd just love to sink into reading this historical book, and has a blurb on the cover from Jessie Burton. So I assume if you like Jessie Burton's writing, you will probably like this as well. In the Full Light of the Sun by Clare Clark. This is another novel which has really beautiful cover, and it's about three people in Berlin who discover some whole group of lost paintings of Van Gogh's, and so it's about their process of rediscovering those paintings and then bringing them into the public. And apparently it's based on a true story, but this is a novel. Yeah, and it's set in Berlin, and I just went to Berlin for the first time last year, so I've been wanting to read more books set in Berlin. War Doctor by David Nott. This sounds like a really harrowing, great nonfiction book. So David Nott is a surgeon who spent the past 25 years or so traveling around to and volunteering his time in different war zones around the world. Some of the most conflict-ridden, dangerous war zones in the world, and helping people who are injured in those countries. And so it's a doctor and surgeon who is really working on the front lines, and so it's his reflections about those experiences. It's Not About the Burka by Mariam Khan, and this is a collection of essays and memoirist nonfiction essays that has this great inside cover listing of the people who write these essays. And Mariam Khan is an editor who put this collection together because she got really fed up with politicians, most of them white, non-Muslim male politicians, debating about the burqa and the veil, and having these debates about Muslim culture, and making their pronouncements about Muslim women, making assumptions about them. And she got fed up because she didn't recognize herself or other Muslim women that she knew in the way that they were being discussed in these debates. And so this is her process of trying to reclaim and make prominent the voices of these Muslim women who, in their own words, talking about their experiences, their ideas and reflections, and their political beliefs. And so, yeah, it's a collection of essays that sounds like a really good addition to this mix of dialogue. Mothlight by Adam Scoville. This sounds like quite an experimental, short experimental novel about a young man who is a scientist studying moths alongside a much older woman who also studies moths. And the older woman dies, and then it's about that younger man carrying on, but he feels like his personality is sort of mixed with this older woman who is now deceased. So yeah, sounds like a really creative, interesting story, and I'm just feel so intrigued by this book. The Rain Watcher by Tatyana de Rosnay. This is a novel about a family who's been separated for a long period of time. They're sort of separated in different cities around the globe, and they come back together for a reunion in Paris. And one of the older members of the family, who's celebrating his 70th birthday, I think, he suffers a stroke during his 70th birthday. But at the same time, there are heavy rains going, and the banks of the river are flooding over, and it's becoming a bit of a natural disaster. And so they're experiencing this personal crisis in the midst of a big, larger scale crisis. So it sounds like quite an intense, action-packed novel. Pop star Jihadi by Tyrone. This is a novel about a pop star, unsurprisingly, who, while he's performing on stage, is wearing a bomb which explodes and kills both himself and quite a number of his fans who are in the audience. And in the aftermath, the media claims that this was an act of radical Islam, and but then subsequent facts come out, and it turns out that might not be the case. But because it's already been widely reported in the media, it's just accepted as fact. So this is a novel which I think sort of examines the whole process of the media and how things get accepted as fact, even if they may not be true, and even if details come out later, there's still the lingering idea which has become sort of cemented in the general public consciousness. Reparation by Gaby Koppel. This is a novel published by Hono Press. It's a new novel, and Hono Press is a Welsh press which promotes and celebrates the work and writing of women. And this novel is set in the late 90s, and it's about a female journalist in Hungary and her relationship with her mother, and her mother is just retired on a very strict budget, and she's on a very limited budget, and it's about her process of learning about her mother's life and also the history of Hungary. And finally, In at the Deep End by Kate Davies, and this is a novel that I heard the author read from a few months ago, and it sounds like such a sort of funny, comical, but really engaging novel about modern modern relationships. So it's about a woman who's sort of struggling to settle down, find a good relationship for herself. She has a very awkward sexual encounter with a man, and she also has this flirtatious relationship with a lesbian who's sort of making eyes at her, and yeah, it just sounds like a really fun novel. So those are all the books. Like I said, let me know in the comments below what you think sounds most interesting and you're most intrigued to read. And I hope you're having a good reading month, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.